1967, two young witnesses were alerted by the agitation of dozens of frightened farm animals at around noon. The witnesses then observed a landed spherical 3 meters diameter UFO at a distance of 80 yards, with 4 occupants near it. Very high luminosity was reported after slow takeoff, leaving physiological effects on the witnesses' eyes that were confirmed by the village mayor. The hiss noise described by the two witnesses was also heard by the anti-guard of the village. The UFO acceleration after vertical takeoff was estimated to be about 100 Gs by Japan experts. The occupants were seen floating in the air while entering the craft from its top, at first in a hurry like this. Physical traces on the ground from the craft were confirmed by the local police, as well as a sulfur oxide odor. CNES experts in meteorology and space debris worked in the field with the witnesses, along with a judge, a psychologist, an optical engineer, and an aeronautical engineer. They had full measuring equipment and work with the police as well. The official conclusion of Japan in 1979 was that about 15% of the cases remained unidentified after careful analysis by our experts. We concluded that the objects in most of these cases were compatible with flying machines whose flight physics were foreign to the experts' knowledge. What I've tasted previously is about the past. Now there are some recent experimental facts in direct relation with my Japan and UFO investigation involvement that I believe personally that are of great importance for our future and for the way you should handle now the UFO observation in the USA. After I left Japan, but remained in CNES, I continued to work in the UFO subject, but in the domain of theoretical physics. Last April, 30 years after, the physical theory about gravitation and inertia I was working on since 1980 was successfully tested in the laboratory. Effectively, I patented and tested in my laboratory devices able to create a strong artificial gravitation field that seems to be the cause of most of the strange effects that are described in UFO observation reports. I'm talking about such effects as tremendous accelerations, sharp turns, sudden stops, powerful emission of light, silent supersonic speed, stopping of cars, paralysis of witnesses, desiccation of vegetation, etc. Personally, I think that this discovery puts an end to many of the scientific enigmas about UFOs. These experimental results are currently open to be demonstrated in my laboratory in Toulouse for qualified scientists, scientific journalists, and industrial representatives, including those from the USA. Evidently, I am concentrating now on the very numerous possibilities of new applications, mainly in the domain of propulsion, of energy generation, and in the domain of health. Thank you for your attention.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Jean-Charles Duboc. I am a retired Air France captain. During Air France flight 3532 from Nice to London on 28 January 1994, I observed with my crew a UFO in broad daylight near Paris. We had few passengers on board, and none of them had reported that observation to the crew. The time was 1 p.m. and the visibility was excellent, with some altocumulus clouds. That object had been identified initially by a steward who was in the cockpit and by the co-pilot as a weather balloon. But when I identified it, it looked quite different. In fact, this UFO was in evolution, and it looked like this, with a bank angle of 45 degrees. It seemed to be a huge flying disc. It stabilized and stopped moving. We observed it over 1 minute on the left of our plane, surprisingly totally stationary in the sky, and it disappeared progressively. This large object was below us at the altitude of 35,000 feet. We were at 39,000 feet, at a distance of about 25 nautical miles. The color was red-brown with blurred outlines. The apparent diameter of this object could be compared to the diameter of the moon or the sun. That means that it was about 1,000 feet wide. We had no idea of the structure of the UFO that seemed to be embedded in a kind of magnetic or gravitational field with no lights or visual metallic structure, which gave it a really fuzzy appearance. The most incredible aspect is that it became transparent and disappeared in about 10 to 20 seconds. My co-pilot, chief steward, and I quickly realized that what we were seeing didn't resemble anything known to us, and we reported our sighting to RANS traffic control. Simultaneously, the radar of the Operational Center of the Air Defense, the CODA, registered a 1-minute spot crossing the track of our plane. When I recorded the estimated position of the UFO on an aeronautical map, I was surprised to realize that its position was near the base of Taverny, which hosts the headquarters of the French Strategic Air Command. This sighting has been studied by the French military committee group under the direction of General Donizetti and with the participation of several high-ranking officers of the French defense, as well as by GEPAN under the French National Space Center, CNES. The investigations determined this could not have been a weather balloon and estimated the approximate length of the UFO to have been 800 feet. This sighting remains unexplained. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jean-Claude Ribes, and I am an astronomer working for the French Centre National de la Recherche Scientifique from 1963 to 1998. I contributed to the French Cometa report, a 3-year military study on UFOs and national security, released in 1999, and more recently to the book Phénomènes aérospatiaux non identifiés, under the direction of Yves Sillard, chairman of the steering committee of JPAN. He asked me to represent him and JPAN here today. General Donizetti, chairman of the Cometa group, also asked me to represent him here because he was unable to attend. The Cometa report was written mainly by